This is part 1, covering chapters 1 to 6 of my book, available on Amazon Books, titled Project 2025 Quick Review by Marko Vovk. A significant document in American politics and policy has emerged as a potential blueprint for the future, Project 2025. Although not widely known, this comprehensive plan has the potential to reshape our nation profoundly. Developed by the Heritage Foundation in collaboration with over 80 conservative organizations, Project 2025 presents a bold vision for reshaping the federal government and American society by conservative principles. Project 2025, formerly known as the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, is a continuation of Project 2020. Project 2025 is a massive undertaking, culminating in this 900-page document, which outlines detailed policy proposals across every aspect of government. Developed with a reported budget of $22 million, this initiative is unprecedented in its scope and level of preparation for a potential conservative administration taking office in January 2025. The origins of Project 2025 can be traced back to the Heritage Foundation's long-standing tradition of providing policy recommendations to incoming administrations. However, this iteration stands apart in its ambition, detail, and the breadth of conservative organizations involved in its creation. A coalition of conservative policy experts, think tank scholars, and former government officials wrote the document to provide a comprehensive roadmap for implementing conservative policies upon taking office. Project 2025's intended audience is multifaceted. The plan serves as a guide for a potential conservative administration, offering ready-made policy proposals and strategies for their implementation. The platform serves as a rallying point for conservative activists and voters, presenting a unified vision for conservative governance. For policymakers and political observers, it provides insight into the priorities and strategies of the contemporary conservative movement. The stated purpose of Project 2025 is to prepare for a smooth transition to conservative governance, ensuring that a new administration can hit the ground running with a clear agenda and strategy. However, critics argue that its true intent goes beyond mere preparation, representing an attempt to reshape the American government and society according to a specific ideological vision. The controversy surrounding Project 2025 stems from several factors. First, the sheer scope and ambition of the proposals have alarmed many who see them as a radical departure from current policies and norms. Second, specific proposals, such as reclassifying a large number of federal employees as political appointees, have raised concerns about the politicization of the civil service. Third, the document's emphasis on issues like restricting abortion access, promoting religious liberty, and rolling back environmental regulations has intensified ideological divisions. Critics view Project 2025 as a blueprint for dismantling democratic institutions and imposing a far-right agenda, while supporters see it as a necessary corrective to progressive policies and the administrative state's overreach. This book aims to provide a comprehensive yet accessible overview of the key proposals of Project 2025. Each chapter focuses on a specific area of policy or governance, distilling the essence of Project 2025's recommendations into clear, concise summaries. One of the most ambitious aspects of Project 2025 is its proposal to dismantle federal agencies and restructure the government. This includes implementing Schedule F to reclassify federal workers as political appointees, thereby increasing executive control over the bureaucracy. The plan also proposes overhauling the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. In the arena of social policy, Project 2025 advocates for abolishing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the Pentagon, restricting abortion access, and penalizing providers and scaling back Medicare and Social Security. These proposals reflect a broader effort to reverse progressive policies and reduce federal involvement in social issues. Environmental policy is another primary focus, with Project 2025 advocating for reversing climate change policies and prioritizing the reduction of fossil fuel use. This includes expanding domestic energy production, including oil and gas, and revising environmental regulations to favor business interests. Education policy is also a key area of reform, with proposals to eliminate the Department of Education promote school choice and voucher programs, and strengthen protections for homeschooling and parental rights in education. These measures aim to increase parental control over education and reduce federal oversight of education. On immigration, Project 2025 emphasizes strengthening border security and immigration enforcement, reforming the asylum system and refugee programs to reduce admissions, and enhancing interior enforcement to combat illegal immigration. This includes expanding detention capacity, implementing a nationwide e-verify system, and cracking down on sanctuary cities. Economic policy proposals include reducing federal regulations across various sectors, reforming the tax code to lower corporate and individual rates, and promoting deregulation to spur economic growth. The plan also calls for reforming international trade policies and strengthening intellectual property protections. In civil liberties, Project 2025 prioritizes protections for religious freedom, expands Second Amendment rights, and promotes traditional family values in its policy decisions. This includes increasing school prayer and spiritual expression in public institutions, as well as strengthening protections for religious organizations in government contracting and grants. The plan also addresses perceived biases in various sectors, including tech companies, social media platforms, higher education, and federal agencies. This includes reforming antitrust laws and enforcement, with a focus on tech companies, as well as addressing perceived political bias within federal agencies. Project 2025 proposes significant reforms to the federal budget process, including a balanced budget amendment, and calls for revising federal housing policies and programs. The plan is to reform federal labor laws and union regulations, as well as restructure federal health care and welfare programs. We delve into the details of Project 2025. Readers are encouraged to consider the broader context of American governance, the balance between different branches and levels of government, and the potential long-term impacts of such sweeping changes. Whether you view Project 2025 as a necessary course correction or a dangerous overreach, understanding its proposals is crucial for engaging in informed civic discourse about the future direction of the United States. This book does not aim to persuade readers to support or oppose Project 2025. Instead, it seeks to provide a clear and accessible summary of its proposals, enabling readers to form their own opinions based on a solid understanding of the initiative's content. Dismantling federal agencies and restructuring the government. Project 2025 outlines a comprehensive plan to reform the federal government, aiming to consolidate power within the executive branch and align government operations with conservative ideologies. The 900-page document outlines a radical restructuring of federal agencies, including the elimination of the Department of Education. This proposal will also abolish the Department of Homeland Security and replace it with a new immigration agency. The plan aims to consolidate the entire federal bureaucracy under direct presidential control, thereby placing independent agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communications Commission under the president's authority. A key strategy involves reclassifying thousands of federal civil service workers as political appointees, making the dismissal of career officials easier and replacing them with loyalists. Project 2025 calls for the dismissal of up to 50,000 government workers deemed obstructive to the conservative agenda and aims to reduce the overall number of public jobs by 1 million. The plan includes agency-specific changes such as abolishing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within the Pentagon, ending FBI efforts to combat misinformation, and proposing a top-to-bottom overhaul of the Department of Justice. It also outlines a 180-day playbook for rapidly implementing these changes in the first 6 months of a new administration. Project 2025 advocates privatizing some government tasks and redefining agency missions to align with an ultra-conservative agenda. It's based on the unitary executive theory, arguing for expansive presidential authority over the executive branch. The plan also suggests using federal funding as leverage to ensure compliance with new policies. Critics argue these proposals undermine the separation of powers, civil service protections, and overall government stability. Supporters contend these measures are necessary to combat what they perceive as an unaccountable bureaucracy and to implement conservative policies. The scope and ambition of Project 2025 represent a significant departure from traditional conservative approaches to government. The plan would transform the relationship between the executive branch and other parts of the federal system. Implementing Schedule F to reclassify federal workers as political appointees. Project 2025's proposal to reinstate Schedule F is a critical element of its strategy to overhaul the federal workforce and enhance executive authority. This policy, introduced by Trump in 2020 and later rescinded by Biden, aims to reclassify numerous civil servants as political appointees, affecting up to 50,000 employees across various agencies. The initiative's primary objective is to grant the President greater control over the federal workforce increase policy implementation and counter perceived bureaucratic resistance. A 180-day playbook outlines actions for the first 6 months of a new administration, prioritizing the implementation of Schedule F across multiple agencies, including the Department of Justice, the FBI, and independent bodies such as the Federal Trade Commission. Schedule F would facilitate the dismissal of federal employees by removing traditional civil service protections and replacing career officials with those aligned with the administration's ideology. Project 2025 suggests this could significantly reduce the federal workforce, eliminating up to 1 million jobs. Project 2025 aims to abolish DEI initiatives in the Pentagon as part of its plan to reshape the Department of Defense. The document argues that DEI programs detract from national defense and combat readiness. It calls for halting all DEI training and ending diversity-focused recruitment in favor of merit-based selection. The plan seeks to eliminate diversity considerations in military promotions and close all DEI offices within the Pentagon and military branches. Funds allocated to DEI would be redirected toward combat training and the procurement of equipment. Specific recommendations include eliminating the Department of Defense's Diversity and Inclusion Strategic Plan and disbanding related committees. Project 2025 justifies these changes by claiming that DEI initiatives undermine unit cohesion and divert resources from essential military needs. It proposes reviewing general promotions to prioritize core military roles over social engineering and non-defense matters. And restricting abortion access and penalizing providers. Project 2025's plan to restrict abortion access and penalize providers is a vital part of its conservative agenda. The proposal aims to limit abortion medication, mifepristone, by enforcing the Comstock Act. This would ban mailing abortion-related items, potentially overriding state laws protecting abortion rights. The document outlines measures to penalize abortion providers, increasing legal risks for healthcare professionals. The plan proposes stricter surveillance of abortion numbers in each state, threatening to cut federal funding for non-compliant states. This contrasts with recent moves in some states to remove abortion reporting requirements. Project 2025 seeks to restrict federal funding for abortion services and organizations providing them. It advocates promoting heterosexual couples as the ideal, natural family structure, influencing family planning and reproductive health policies. These proposed measures would likely face legal challenges, especially in states with protected abortion rights. Many proposals would conflict with existing state laws where abortion rights are codified. The restrictions could have broader implications for women's health care and reproductive services. The plan proposes utilizing executive orders and federal agency actions to implement rules, potentially circumventing legislative processes. Project 2025's approach is rooted in a conservative Christian worldview, emphasizing religious values and traditional family structures. Project 2025 outlines a comprehensive overhaul of the Department of Justice and the FBI, aiming to reshape federal law enforcement. The plan calls for increased political control by assigning more appointees throughout the Department of Justice to promote the president's agenda. It seeks to end the DOJ's independence from the White House and bring it under direct presidential control. The document states the DOJ is a bloated bureaucracy and proposes reforms to align it with conservative priorities. It recommends redirecting the Civil Rights Division to prosecute anti-white racism and target diversity programs. The plan suggests curtailing consent decrees between the DOJ and local police departments. For the FBI, Project 2025 proposes holding the director accountable to the president and refocusing priorities on serious crimes and national security threats. It calls for ending FBI efforts to combat misinformation and increased agency oversight. Implementation strategies include a 180-day playbook seeking legislative support, utilizing executive orders, and replacing career officials with individuals aligned with the goals. The plan justifies these changes as necessary to restore public trust in federal law enforcement. Project 2025 aims to align the DOJ and FBI with conservative policy goals and interpretations of law. It references the need to counter a perceived radical liberal agenda within these agencies. The Civil Rights Division's reorientation has raised concerns about potential impacts on minority protections and anti-discrimination efforts. Overall, Project 2025's proposals represent a significant departure from traditional norms of independence in federal law enforcement. Project 2025 proposes sweeping changes to social services and federal programs, including Medicare and Social Security. The plan aligns with conservative goals of reducing government spending and privatizing services. It suggests privatizing aspects of Medicare and Social Security, potentially shifting responsibility to private insurers or individual retirement accounts. The plan calls for scaling back federal programs, including healthcare services. This implies potential reductions in Medicare coverage or benefits. Project 2025 aims to reduce federal spending, which could impact funding for Medicare and Social Security. It emphasizes market-based approaches to social services, introducing competition into Medicare or allowing private alternatives to Social Security. While specific details are scarce, the plan likely involves restructuring the administration of Medicare and Social Security. There may be proposals to adjust eligibility requirements, such as raising the eligibility age or implementing means testing. The plan advocates shifting more control to states, which could potentially impact how Medicare and Social Security are administered. Critics argue that these changes could significantly affect the health care and retirement security of millions of Americans, particularly low-income and elderly populations. They warn of increased healthcare costs and reduced retirement benefits. Furthermore, most of the civilized world has a national healthcare system, and the insurance industry in the USA continues to thwart this progression. The plan advocates shifting more control to states, which could potentially impact how Medicare and Social Security are administered. Critics argue that these changes could significantly affect the health care and retirement security of millions of Americans, particularly low-income and elderly populations. They warn of increased healthcare costs and reduced retirement benefits. Furthermore, most of the civilized world has a national healthcare system, and the insurance industry in the USA continues to thwart this progression. Supporters of Project 2025 might argue that these changes are necessary to address the long-term financial challenges facing Medicare and Social Security and reduce government spending. The lack of specific details suggests that the document doesn't provide extensive information on these programs, or that available search results don't focus on this aspect. Given the importance of Medicare and Social Security in the U.S. social safety net, any proposed changes would likely face significant public scrutiny and debate. The potential impact on healthcare and retirement security for millions of Americans underscores the need for careful consideration and public discourse on these proposals. This concludes Part 1, Chapters 1 to 6. Please watch Part 2, Chapters 7 to 42, bookline below in comment.